November 11, 1944. Ormoc Bay, Philippines. A ship burns on the water. Not just any vessel. This is Shimakaze, the pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy's destroyer fleet. 18 months earlier, on her sea trials, she had surged past 40.9 knots. No destroyer anywhere had ever reached that speed. Engineers at Miura Naval Arsenal had built a ship unlike any other. A ship designed to outrun every threat it couldn't overpower. Now, she cannot move. Flames crawl over her superstructure, fueled by ruptured oil lines and shattered equipment. Black smoke twists skyward, marking her position for miles in every direction. Her engines, the revolutionary machines that had pushed her past 41 miles per hour, are silent. Dead. Whatever struck her in the opening chaos of the American attack had ripped through her machinery spaces. The most advanced destroyer in the Japanese fleet now drifts, powerless, with the current. Her crew scrambles across tilting decks, fighting fires they cannot control with equipment that no longer functions. Amid the chaos, Rear Admiral Mikio Hayakawa, commander of Destroyer Squadron 2, stands aboard this burning wreck, watching his ship die. She will drift for hours. She will burn for hours. And then, in the afternoon, she will explode. A blast so violent it will scatter her remains across the seafloor, 715 feet below. Her admiral will perish with her. Most of her crew will follow. But here's the question that matters. Shimakaze was built to run, built to strike and vanish, built with engines so powerful the Navy had planned 32 more just like her. So why couldn't she save herself? Why did all that speed, all that engineering brilliance mean nothing when it mattered most? The answer begins 39 years earlier, between Korea and Japan. May 27, 1905. The Tsushima Strait. The Russian Baltic Fleet had sailed 18,000 miles to reach these waters. 8 months at sea, halfway around the world, they came to break Japan's blockade, to relieve Port Arthur, to crush this rising Asian navy that dared challenge a European great power. On paper, they had every advantage. More ships, more guns, more tonnage, decades of imperial naval tradition behind them. Yet, in less than 48 hours, they were annihilated. Admiral Togo Heihachiro caught them in the strait and never let go. Over 20 Russian warships sank to the bottom. 7 more were captured. Thousands of Russian sailors died, killed or drowned. Japanese losses? Minimal. 3 torpedo boats. Barely 100 men. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Tsushima rewired the Japanese naval mindset for the next 4 decades. The battle became scripture, proof that one decisive engagement, fought with aggression and precision, could determine the fate of empires. The lesson was clear. Concentrate your forces. Strike first. Strike hard. Hold nothing back. Offense wins wars. Defense is for nations that have already lost. This was Kai Kessen, the doctrine of decisive battle. Every Japanese warship built after 1905 carried its fingerprints. Speed over armor, firepower over protection. Close with the enemy, destroy him before he could respond. Japanese admirals didn't plan to absorb punishment. They planned never to be hit in the first place. It was a seductive philosophy. Also, a gamble, a bet that the next war would mirror the last. In 1939, when the Naval General Staff approved plans for a new superdestroyer, they weren't hedging, they were doubling down. The Type C specifications read like fantasy. The most powerful destroyer engines ever designed, fitted to a hull carrying more torpedo tubes than any other warship afloat. Make her faster than anything in any navy anywhere. Make her so deadly American cruiser captains would fear the sight of her wake. Miura Naval Arsenal laid down her keel in August 1941. 4 months before Pearl Harbor, they named her Shimakaze, Island Wind. Her crew, hand-picked men from across the fleet chosen for technical skill and combat record. Serving aboard Shimakaze meant you were among the elite. It meant the Navy trusted you with their most advanced weapon. When commissioned in May 1943, the numbers justified their pride. Her experimental high-pressure boilers generated nearly 80,000 shaft horsepower, 50% more than any previous destroyer of similar size. On speed trials, she exceeded 40 knots, then 40.5, then 40.9, 76 kilometers per hour across open water. Nothing else came close. Her armament? Equally unprecedented. 15 torpedo tubes in 3 quintuple mounts, each loaded with a Type 93 long lance. Nearly 30 feet long, 1,100 pounds, capable of crippling a cruiser with a single hit. No other destroyer could carry such firepower. Most could barely manage half a. Plans called for 32 of these ships. 4 full squadrons, the striking arm of Kai Kessen, overwhelming enemies with torpedoes before vanishing into the night. It would have been the most formidable destroyer force ever assembled. Screening Force, June 1944, present at the Philippine Sea. October 1944, rescued survivors from the sinking battleship Musashi, the largest warship ever built, dying under American bombs. By November 1944, Shimakaze was the flagship of Destroyer Squadron 2, flying the flag of Rear Admiral Mikio Hayakawa, 18 months in service, dozens of missions. She had never once fired her torpedoes against an enemy ship. The decisive battle hadn't arrived, and it wouldn't, because while the Japanese had spent 40 years preparing for Tsushima, the Americans had been preparing for something entirely different. Something that would render speed irrelevant. On paper, Island Wind was everything the Imperial Japanese Navy had ever desired. But paper doesn't fight wars. The systems that made her so fast, those revolutionary boilers, those unprecedented engines, hid a deadly truth her designers either overlooked or ignored. High-pressure steam systems are unforgiving. Shimakaze's boilers operated at temperatures and pressures far beyond conventional warships. That's how you get 50% more power without adding weight. That's how you break 40 knots. The engineering was brilliant, world-class, award-winning in peacetime. But brilliance comes at a cost. Think of it like a Formula One car. Built light, built fast, every component optimized. Hit a wall at 100 miles per hour? Nothing survives. Shimakaze was a Formula One destroyer. Her machinery spaces were packed tight, every system calibrated for maximum output. Steam lines carried superheated vapor at pressures that would rupture ordinary pipes. Breach those lines, a shell fragment, a bomb concussion, a near-miss hull deformation, and the steam would not leak quietly. It would explode. Superheated steam in a confined space doesn't burn. It cooks instantly. No warning, no escape. Conventional destroyers ran lower pressures across multiple boiler rooms. Lose one? You could limp home, make repairs, fight another day. Shimakaze's designers chose raw performance. The theory? She would never take a hit in the first place. But the boilers weren't the only danger aboard. Shimakaze's main armament, the long-lance torpedoes, her very reason for existence, was the deadliest ship-killing weapon of its era. Range, speed, warhead size, it outclassed anything the Americans or British could field. Japanese torpedo officers trained for years to master it. Admirals built entire battle plans around these torpedoes. Yet it was also a bomb with a hair trigger. The long lance used pure compressed oxygen as propellant. That's what gave it such extraordinary range. Oxygen doesn't just burn. Under the right conditions, it detonates. Those conditions weren't hard to create. Heat, fire, chaos aboard a ship taking combat damage. The Japanese Navy had already learned this lesson the hard way. Midway, June 1942. American dive bombers struck the heavy cruiser Mikuma. Fires spread to the torpedo mounts. Then the oxygen-filled cylinders did exactly what physics demanded. Mikuma exploded. She sank. Her sister ship Moami faced similar punishment the same day, but Moami's captain acted differently. He ordered the torpedoes jettisoned, dumped overboard. Moami survived. Lesson: when fire breaks out near oxygen torpedoes, remove them immediately. Captains who acted fast saved their ships. Hesitant ones lost everything. Yet, 2 years later, the same tragedy repeated. At Leyte Gulf, heavy cruiser Suzuya suffered near misses, fires, torpedo explosion, and sank. Heavy cruiser Chokai followed the same sequence, same result, same day. Light cruiser Abakuma, 3 bomb hits, torpedo detonation destroyed the ship. 3 ships killed by their own weapons in just 48 hours. You might ask, if the Navy knew this, why didn't they fix it? Issue orders? The answer was worse than incompetence. Fixing the problem meant admitting the problem. Acknowledging that the doctrine, the long lance philosophy, the Kai Kessen strategy, had a structural flaw that couldn't be engineered away. Shimakaze carried 15 long lances in her quintuple mounts, more than any other destroyer afloat. Her greatest weapon was also her greatest vulnerability. 15 cylinders of compressed oxygen and high explosives sitting on her deck, waiting. The captains who survived fires had one thing in common: time. Time to recognize the danger. Time to act. But when the first strike takes that time away, by November 1944, the Imperial Japanese Navy existed mostly on paper. Leyte Gulf had ended October 23rd to 26th, the largest naval battle in history, spread across 4 separate engagements in Philippine waters. The result? Japan lost 4 aircraft carriers, 3 battleships, 10 cruisers, 11 destroyers. The combined fleet that had terrorized the Pacific for 3 years was broken beyond repair. Broken, yes. Defeated, no. Not to men who would rather die than surrender. General Tomoyuki Yamashita, commander of Japanese forces in the Philippines, reinforced Leyte, telling his men, "Keep fighting. Make the Americans pay for every mile." Convoys ran through Ormoc Bay, on the western coast opposite the American beachheads, fast ships hauling troops and ammunition through waters dominated by enemy aircraft. Desperate work, dangerous work, work that demanded a ship like Shimakaze. November 4th, Rear Admiral Mikio Hayakawa transferred his flag aboard Island Wind. Destroyer Squadron 2 would escort convoy TA-3 from Manila to Ormoc. 4 destroyers protecting 4 transports, carrying 2,000 soldiers and 6,000 tons of supplies. 300 miles through hostile seas. American reconnaissance had been tracking Japanese shipping for weeks. Everyone knew the carriers were out there. Everyone knew what was coming. The convoy departed Manila on November 8th. For 3 days, they pushed south through the Visayan Sea. Shimakaze screened ahead, her radar scanning the horizon, lookouts watching the sky. American aircraft spotted them on the 9th, and again on the 10th. The convoy's position, no secret. Coordinates waiting to be acted upon. Morning of November 11th, they entered Ormoc Bay. A few more hours and the transports would unload. A few more hours and the mission would be complete. Then, 350 aircraft appeared on the horizon. Admiral William Halsey had ordered Task Force 38. Strike the convoy with everything. Fighters, dive bombers, torpedo bombers. Wave after wave, rising from 15 carrier decks, converging on the Japanese ships like a predator on prey. Shimakaze's anti-aircraft guns opened fire. 5-inch mounts cracked. 25mm batteries hammered, tracers arcing skyward, trying to build a wall of steel between the ship and the diving aircraft. Not enough. 24 planes, maybe? 350? Nothing. The Americans had mastered this. Overwhelm the gunners from multiple angles, turn a formation into a killing ground. This wasn't combat. This was industrial slaughter. The first wave targeted the transports. Bombs fell. Ships burned. Soldiers clung to wreckage, sinking with their equipment. Shimakaze? She was the real target. Flagship, largest destroyer in the convoy. 3 quintuple torpedo mounts made her profile unmistakable. American pilots knew exactly what they were after. They knew what those 15 long lances could do to a cruiser formation. Fighters first, strafing at deck level, Machine guns and cannons ripping the superstructure apart. Men thrown, instruments shattered, the bridge hit. Then, the bombers. Shimakaze zigzagged hard, rudder swinging from port to starboard. Fast, but speed didn't matter when the sky was full of aircraft. Near misses bracketed her hull, lifting her stern, shockwaves rattling the frame, rupturing machinery below. One moment, maneuvering at full power, black smoke streaming 30-plus knots. The next, disaster. Speed dropped, smoke darkened, oilier, wrong. 20 knots, 15, 10, then nothing. Shimakaze coasted to a stop in Ormoc Bay. Ruptured steam lines, breached boilers, cascading machinery failures. Catastrophic. The most advanced propulsion system in the Japanese fleet. Dead. The ship that could outrun anything afloat. Motionless. Around her, the battle raged. Other destroyers fought. Transports burned. Aircraft circled. Shimakaze sat, smoke rising from multiple fires across her decks. Rear Admiral Hayakawa remained on the bridge watching his flagship die. Minutes of attack, but for 267 men aboard, the nightmare had only begun. A dead ship doesn't just stop, it burns. Smoke, groaning metal, hissing steam, water flooding dry spaces. Men scalded, lungs seared, carrying wounded shipmates. Main propulsion, gone. Not damaged, gone. Fires spread faster than damage control teams could stop. Generators dead, fire hoses dry, pumps destroyed. 267 men against raging flames, buckets, portable extinguishers, soaked blankets, bare hands. Shimakaze fought as best she could, but the island wind was dying.